Welcome back or welcome to the Tower Yoga podcast. Today, I am so happy to be here with Kestrel, a recent graduate from our 2025 teacher training. So, welcome in and please just let us know anything that you want about yourself or anything that the listeners should know about you.
Sure. Well, my name is Kestrel Kuhn, born and raised Pennsylvania. I've been here in the California area for about a little over 2 years now. I am active duty in the military, so I work at the air station in Lemoore, and I've been practicing yoga now since like 2020, I'd say. Like starting off pretty minor, but has developed into a more routine practice since then.
Okay. Well, cool. So, when's the first time you came to Tower Yoga?
It was through Poli because I originally lived in Hanford. So commuting to Fresno was a bit of a commute. It was like about a 45-minute drive. I think Poli had just invited me to go to Tower Yoga. I don't know specifically for him why Tower, but I think it was one of Hannah's classes, like either the community class, like I think it was Friday at 5 p.m., something like that. And that was probably early. I moved here in April of 2023. So maybe a couple months after that was like the first time I had come to Tower.
Yeah. Okay. Now I remember
hmm
that. That's awesome.
hmm
So, what initially drew you to sign up for our 200-hour teacher training? Like, what was the specific moment, or like, how did that curiosity come about?
I think it was just an announcement. I had gone to one of the classes and someone had just made an announcement for yoga teacher training. And it was like the first time I had felt like this like big peak of interest. Just because have at that point, I felt like I had been deepening in my practice a lot and it was becoming a real interest of mine. And it just like stood out to me. And I think I had in my head to become a teacher, you have to like take a month off and go abroad, which is something that's very difficult to do in the military. So hearing that and then looking at more information, realizing it was just weekends for like those course of months that we did the training was like, whoa, that's like something that might be a possibility for me. Like I could work it into my schedule. So I just like I wanted to follow that thread, and so I did.
Yeah, I'm so glad you did. And also, I
Mhm.
remember when you signed up, you were saying like, by the way, like at any point, they I might need to leave. So I'm glad that you were able to make it through all the weekends.
Yeah, I'm super grateful for that too. It's just like a big transition point in my job, and yeah, at any point they could say, "Hey, get your back on," and you're going on deployment. And I wanted to make sure that was clear with you guys too. But I'm very grateful that the timing worked out perfectly. And I remember distinctly having that conversation with Jameson when we were like having those initial phone calls about the training, and him saying, "It's just like about throwing your intention kind of out into the world, and then if it happens it happens, and if it doesn't there'll be another time." And so I'm grateful that the time was now and I was able to complete it.
Is there anything yoga related that you do like in the military? That's kind of maybe a funny question, but I don't know, it's grown so much.
Do you mean like specifically the physical practice in the military?
Yeah. Or
I mean,
even
there are
like breath work
classes.
or anything like that.
No, and I think there should be. That's something that I would love to bring to the community. There are yoga classes on the base gym, and I was going to try and see if I could do something there and incorporate some of that into the military lifestyle because I do really think it would be of value for sure for the community. But no, nothing. You would have to seek it out yourself if you wanted to, and people do, but nothing like in the actual conduct of how we run things. No.
Well, I guess so the initial reason for you doing the training, what I'm hearing, it was more about like deepening your practice, or was there a thought that like, and then maybe I can teach and like bring this into like a niche thing and something I already do?
Definitely. I would, yeah, initially the interest was just deepening the practice and having more of advanced studies. But then, yeah, I would have this tool that I think would be really invaluable to this like community that I'm a part of. And something that I had even envisioned was being on a deployment, like on a carrier, this big metal ship, like floating in the middle of the ocean, and being able to provide yoga classes for people I have not been on a deployment yet, so I don't know how realistic that is or not, but if it's a possibility, I think it would be super valuable. I would love to have the ability to do that.
That's amazing. So how has your understanding of yoga evolved from when you started the training to now, like being on the other side?
I just the background, because there's a lot of little traditions, I think, in yoga, the namaste, the shavasana, the Sanskrit of all the poses, and it's something that's cool in the moment, but not really like fully understanding the background of it. And so learning the background of everything has been really cool, and learning the philosophy that it's based on has been really cool. So it's just enriched it in such a way, and it's made it so much more intentional, I believe.
Were you already, I mean, you gravitated towards yoga and it was something you're really into, but would you like have considered yourself a pretty spiritual person before the training? And like, do you now? If you didn't?
So I would say that has been one of the biggest aspects of what it's provided for me is I grew up Catholic, and kind of in college I had decided that that sector of spirituality wasn't for me, but I didn't know then which path I wanted to go, because I felt like I wanted to be spiritual in some way, but I didn't see a path that had called to me, basically. I didn't want the fear of death to be the only reason why I wanted to be spiritual in some aspect. But learning more about the philosophy and kind of the spiritual aspect of yoga, it finally felt like something had aligned. And that has been really cool for me, kind of finding a bridge between those two ways of thinking, growing up a spiritual Catholic, but finding a pathway that it will actually align with who I am. I think that has been really cool.
The time of this recording graduated just a couple weeks ago now, so it's not been too long, but were you like, "Oh my gosh, I just like need kind of like a big break and some space," or have you continued to like be immersing yourself in some of the studies?
I have taken a little break, I'd say. Yeah, just like a lot of stuff going on in my personal life right now that I think I got to work through first. But I definitely want to start pursuing avenues down there as well once that kind of settles, for sure. I think I would love to look into teaching. Like with the military, I asked my boss, you have to get your commanding officer's approval to get like a second job or a second W-2. So I want to start moving that ball sometime this week or next. And then hopefully, like, once I'm able to incorporate that, then will come more motivation and desire to like continue more of the advanced studies. But I don't want to lose it, but taking just like a little bit of personal time right now, for sure.
That's totally fair. I do
Hmm.
think, honestly, it's one of the reasons why I really wanted to teach is because I knew if I was teaching, I would need to keep studying and practicing. And
Hmm.
so when people are like, "Why did you want to teach?" There's a lot of reasons, but one of them is pretty self-serving in that I knew I needed this practice and I knew that I would stay committed to it if I was
Hmm.
teaching.
Yeah, I definitely feel that as well, and I think that I'll be going down a similar avenue once I'm able to get those ducks in a row.
I think there's something there about accountability. And
Hmm.
some of us do. I think a lot of people do good with accountability, but some of us really, really need that, I think.
It's just good to keep you honest and good to keep you motivated, for sure. And
I
it's
couldn't
a
have said it better myself.
Yeah, I think it's more of building the habit is what needs to get the ball rolling, and that is like a big factor, I think, of building the habit. And then once a habit is there, then you can always rely on it.
100%.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Okay, so looking back, what personal transformation or unexpected insight stands out the most from your teacher training experience?
It is something that's still ongoing, but it really is feeling like I'm on a threshold, for sure, of really finding what I would like to do with my life, because I've been pretty engrossed in military culture. I went to a military college right out of high school and then right to active duty as soon as I graduated. So it's been very prevalent in my life, and it's really good at telling you what to do. And if you're a person that is good at like being told what to do, like, good. But it has really given me this space to pause and reflect about what can I bring to the world, outside of that globe. because work isn't everything, and the work I do is important, but what would I and who would I want to be outside of that? I think it's been a really important like reflecting point for me with that.
Wow. Yeah. That's a good space to dwell in, I think.
Hmm.
That inquiry, that self-inquiry.
It's still going. It's still ongoing. I don't have any answers yet, but it's for sure gotten the ball rolling.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, making some sparks.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. So as far as, we met 6 sessions every 3 weeks. It was a hybrid training, so you had your, of course, in-person hours, and then you also had some online hours. How would you say about, like, how the flow was? You know, what was that like?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was like one weekend every 2 or no, every 3 weeks, and that was cool, and, like, you have the schedule built out, like, way ahead of time, so it's, like, a perfect so you can plan around it, and then the coursework, I think, was sprinkled in pretty well throughout. You did have to be pretty consistent with, like, an hour a day for those 20-hour-long, like, anatomy and the philosophy course, but I thought it was, like, a good pace. I mean, my schedule right now is not super demanding, so I was privileged where I did not have to worry so much about like carving out all that extra time or having early morning wake ups or late nights. But it was good to have that like consistent study because where I'm at right now with the pause in my job, I haven't been studying or been academic, and it was really fun to like be academic again and to study something. So I really enjoyed it.
Were there any, like, major challenges personally that you faced during the course of the training?
Probably being consistent with the online training. I think a couple times I was bad about, like, having the in-person weekend and then coming out of it, I'm like, "Wow, I'm whooped," and then, like, I gotta take, like, a little chill, but then that chill would go on for a little bit longer than it should, and then feeling like this rush to get through the course instead of, probably pacing it out nice to where you can keep it slow and absorb it a little bit better. But, you get those courses to keep for the rest of your life, so I am excited to go back and, like, re-review stuff and take it slower.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing your story and your experience. I
Mhm,
think it's helpful for people to listen in and kind of hear from people like you who take the training and take the course, especially if they're curious about doing that someday.
mhm.
But I have some rapid fire questions I want to fire off.
Alright, hit me.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Downward dog or shavasana? What's your vibe today?
Today's Shavasana.
Okay. What's your yoga mat's secret nickname? If you had one, what would it be?
I don't have a nickname for it. I don't. I should. I'll think about that, though. Now I'm gonna name my
Okay.
yoga mats.
What's
I
your
have a
favorite
hot
yoga pose
knot.
to well, think about it.
I have a
Get back to
hot
us.
mat and I have a knot mat.
Oh, you have a hot mat and a not mat.
Yeah.
What is your favorite yoga pose to do when nobody's watching?
When nobody's watching? Probably Happy Baby, or I really like Scorpion Dog. I like to get really crazy in Scorpion Dog.
What's your least favorite pose that you pretend to like?
Boat or, like, low boat.
If you could take a yoga class with any fictional character, who would it be?
Fictional character, the Buddha. Oh, you said fictional, the Buddha's a real person. Hmm. Taking yoga class. Oh man. What about the Little Mermaid? She's got like flow, man. Do
Heck
some
yeah.
mermaid yoga.
Love
I
it.
don't know. That's
Love it.
why that's the first thing that popped into my head.
I love it. So, what's your go-to snack after a long yoga session?
I always have some fruit, like oranges, and then I normally have like an electrolyte drink as well. And I just like cold water, some fruit.
Love it. Love it. Well, Kestrel, it was a pleasure to be one of the people that got to guide you in your first 200-hour yoga teacher training. And I'm really excited to see how you like blossom and grow from here.
Thank you.
I appreciate you and I appreciate the time you took to come on today and tell us your story.
Absolutely. And I'm super grateful for you guys as well for providing this experience. It was one I'll never forget and I'll carry with me.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye, everyone.
Welcome back
to the Tower Yoga podcast. We're doing interviews today with people who just recently graduated our 200-hour teacher training. And it's actually really cool. Marissa and I were actually talking right before this. Kestrel and Marissa were anchor buddies in teacher trainings. For those of you out there who have not done one of our teacher trainings, which is most of you in the grand scheme of things, we always assign two people together to be kind of like anchor buddies throughout the entire experience so that you have someone who's like the ultimate like check-in buddy. And I did not do this like consciously. There must have been some sort of unconscious orchestrating happening. But it just so happened that in people's schedule was when I was making these interviews that Marissa and Kestrel were like the people I reached out to first who said that they were available. And without even really realizing that they are or were now your
Yes.
forever will be anchor buddies.
Yes.
So that's really cool. But here we are. So that's a little side note, but welcome. And Marissa, I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and to just kind of say anything that you want to about yourself before I get into some of the questions.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for inviting me to speak about my experience at yoga teacher training. My name's Marissa. Let's see. I am a certified Ayurvedic health counselor, and I wanted to deepen my knowledge of yoga, so I decided to embark on the yoga teacher training as well, and it was really awesome.
I love it. Is teacher training, a yoga teacher training, something that interests you from the onset of like starting yoga or through doing your Ayurvedic consulting, education? Were there like a lot of other yoga teachers? And so then you're thinking, oh, that could be cool. By the way, for listeners, I've talked about Ayurveda on the podcast, but just if you haven't listened before and this is your first time listening in, Ayurveda is known as like the sister science to yoga, but really it's very all encompassing. It's an ancient, holistic wisdom and medicine system from India. Just throwing that out
Yes.
there if people are like, Ayur what? But I also did a Ayurvedic training some years back and came to it from being a yoga teacher. And most of the people in my cohort were either really into yoga or yoga teachers already. How did that influence you?
So I started practicing yoga a long time ago, just on and off, here and there, different studios, living in different areas of California. And then when I moved here in Fresno during the pandemic, I joined Tower Yoga. And so I started deepening like my physical practice, took a break, had a kid, decided to embark on the Ayurvedic journey. And yeah, so a lot of the other people in my cohort were yoga teacher trainers or yoga teachers or in yoga teacher training. And I was like, oh, okay, like maybe, and yes, like you said, it's like the sister science. So I was like, maybe that's something I would really be interested in. And so then I happened, I I happened to look on the Tower Yoga website and I saw there was one in January of 2025. And this was last fall. And I was like, that's so perfect. That is crazy divine timing because I set out to finish Ayurveda school by the end of 2024. And I was like, 2025, I want to do yoga teacher training. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know if I'll travel somewhere. And then I looked at Tower's website and they were like, January 2025, apply now. And I was like, okay, here I go.
And it's kind of nice because although you had stepped back and you took a bit of a break with becoming a new mom and also being in Ayurvedic school, all that kind of stuff, you're familiar with the community.
Mhm,
You've
mhm.
spent hours in these rooms, so that had to be pretty comforting.
No, for sure. And something that I really felt deeply about was the fact that it was within this community. You know, like I said, I'm not from Fresno originally, but I've always admired how much Tower Yoga is a part of this community. And like I said, my husband's from here. We had our daughter here. Like my daughter is from Fresno. She's Fresno born, and so this is my community. I've made roots here. And so then joining and, being accepted into Tower Yoga and then being accepted into the 2025 cohort, it it felt very, very good and like fed my heart and soul because at first I originally was like, maybe I'll go to Bali and do yoga teacher training. And then like getting in somewhere where I knew the teachers, I was familiar with how they taught. I loved the way they taught. I loved, again, what Tower Yoga stands for, and your mission. And so it like fed my soul to be able to be a part of it.
That's cool. It's really a beautiful opportunity on the other side of it too. I'm very open to doing different forms of teacher trainings in my life and someday like welcoming people I've never met before. But I will say that these first handful of trainings, this is our like fourth or maybe fifth one or something, but offering it within the community is nice that like the same people I'm seeing on walks with like their dogs or kids in the neighborhood are the people that I'm like training. It's definitely been a really cool foundation to build off of, and it's not lost on me that this is really special. So how has your understanding of yoga, because I know you were saying that you've been practicing on and off for many years, but how has your understanding of yoga evolved from when you started the training to now, like on the other side of the teacher training?
Oh my gosh, so much, so much. So entering the yoga teacher training, I had a little bit of an understanding of like yoga philosophy, not too deep at all, but, just, a little baseline essentially. And then, entering into the training and getting deeper, my understanding and how I feel about yoga now is so vastly changed. I feel like it's so much deeper than what it used to be for me. Before it was just the physical practice, and I loved, I was connected with Dharma talks and then of course like meditation and then the ending with Shavasana. I love that part, but now having like a deeper knowledge of yoga philosophy, I mean, there's so much more for me to learn. I know that, but just getting a little bit deeper than the baseline I was at. I mean, it's unreal, honestly.
Wow. So looking back at the past, several months of training, what personal transformation or unexpected insight stands out the most from your experience?
So I shared on like our very last weekend, a couple weekends ago now, that I had this experience where I felt a renewed faith in a higher power from yoga teacher training. And I think that was from just learning, more deeply again about yogic philosophy. And we touched a lot about having a higher power, believing in something bigger than me. And I've never struggled with that. I accepted that there was a presence in my life, but yoga teacher training helped me renew my faith in that. And it was emotional when we shared about it because I didn't even know that was missing in my life. And so to now just have this feeling of faith and, it may not always look okay, but it's going to be okay, in hindsight, is amazing. Like I said, it was a missing link that I didn't even know was missing. And I didn't even expect to get that out of training at all. Because like I said, I never struggled with, is there a God or whatever. And so to have that like click, like the chains just kind of clicking back together, has been really beautiful. And it's given me, just in the last couple of weeks of having that experience, of having that thought, has given me a more positive outlook on life and anything that's really come my way in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that and for anyone like yourself, but like for anyone out there who's like, huh? Like higher power, like yoga, isn't it just like triangle,
Yeah.
or down dog? Or who even people who know a little bit more than that. But yeah, there is in the worldview of yoga, there is a belief of a permanent divine, if you want to call it that, force. And, in the Rig Veda, one of the books of scriptures that we like look to when we're studying yogic philosophy, it says that the wise call the one truth by many names. And so you can call it what you want,
Mm-hmm.
if God works or if there's just any other name that you resonate with. It could be nature, it could be like love itself, it could be reality as it is, but that it's a huge, I think, tenet in the yogic worldview that we do tread lightly around in just our regular group classes, open to the public because, want to be as inclusive as possible. And I think the teachings of yoga are at the end of the day, like for sure. But there is that thing there. And yoga, maybe not the postures, but the study itself has existed before all the isms.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just an important thing to, I think, like take a little note of. So yeah, I love that had renewed something within you that you didn't even know was lacking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's yoga right
Yeah.
there.
It made it super powerful. Like, exactly. Just, I didn't know it was lacking, missing, and yeah, it just makes it very powerful for me.
Okay, so look, you are a busy mom, you have work, you have this, you're doing trainings, you're doing self-growth, you're doing all kinds of stuff. How did the training work for you or not work for you? I mean, I'm open to hearing that, but we met every 3 weeks for 25 hours on the weekends, and then you had 2 online modules
Mm-hmm.
that you did, a philosophy and an anatomy. What were the highs about that? What were some of the challenges? Yeah.
So definitely for me, the challenges were the online training. I made it like known to the group I can procrastinate. And so for me, it was definitely carving out the time to make sure that I was implementing time to do the online training, because that, of course, was just as important as being together in person. So that was definitely one of the more challenging aspects for me. Like I said, I'm married, I have a kid. So luckily, like on the weekends, my husband was able to watch our daughter. So getting to the studio for the actual physically being there was not so much a challenge. There were moments, I will say, where, I work, like I said, I work. And so then Fridays trying to like get off of work and head to the studio, it's like such a quick, got to do this, got to do that, got to do this. And then it almost felt like a chore. But then the minute I landed, in the Lotus Room on Friday evenings or Friday afternoons and like, felt the camaraderie of every of the cohort and the teachers, it was like, okay, here I am. Here I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, we've made it to the rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yeah. My daughter's trying to peer in a little bit.
Oh, she can. Hi, Ryan. I love that in the like teacher training photos, she like ran
I
up as in like in the
know. And I
photo.
love that it's in the email.
I know, it's so cute. Okay, so a couple questions, rapid fire. If yoga were a food, what would it be?
Okay. That came to my mind is a mango. Yes.
Okay, there you go. Mango. Love it. Have you ever fallen asleep in Shavasana? Be
Yes.
honest. Which yoga sutra would make a great band name?
Yoga in the now is in the now.
Yoga is in the
Yes.
now.
Yoga is in the now.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, thank you so very much. And it was such a pleasure to be one of the people that got to guide you through your first 200-hour yoga teacher training. And I cannot wait to see what blossoms from here
Thank you so much,
for you.
Kellee. Thank you.
Bye, Ryan. Thank you. All right. We'll talk to you
Okay, bye,
later.
Kellee. Thank you.